Hey folks, this is Shane from Performance EV. Today we're going to start trying to build out our battery pack. Hey folks, welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you new to this channel, this is my project to put a Nissan Leaf motor into a Porsche 911. Now, in my last video, I was trying to build out the battery box, so that's the kind of shell that contains the pack, all those modules together, and hit a few snags with the metal I was able to get my hands on. So still trying to figure out a way forward with that, but I'm never one to be defeated, so I want to try and just keep things moving forward, keep things going on this project. And what we're going to try and do is build out the actual battery pack so that when I get the box completed, we can just lift it and drop it into the box, and then we'll be able to install that on the car. So might not actually get to use this for a while, but at least I'll have the entire assembled pack just sitting in the corner of the garage ready to go. So what are we going to do today? So as you probably saw from the previous video, there's a link in the description below, this is going to fit in the back of the Porsche where the engine was, and I'm going for basically 2 stacked layers of 12 battery models. So these are the Nissan Leaf battery modules. Oh, they're heavy, they're about 89 kilos each, and yeah, there's 24 of these in the 40 kilowatt hour pack, which I just assembled a few weeks ago, and I'm going to build out 2 layers of 12. So in the back of the standard Nissan Leaf battery pack, there's basically 12 of these together, and that kind of sits under the rear seats, I think, in the Leaf itself. So there's all sorts of connections and everything to hold that together. I'm going to now take that as kind of the foundation of my battery pack, because I'll be able to put all the cells together, have all the standard mountings on it, and then what I'll do is put another row of 12 on top. The bottom row will be nice and easy, I hope, because I'll even be able to use the different connectors for wiring it up, the bus bars, and the connections for the BMS. The top one will be a little bit more difficult, but hopefully shouldn't be too bad. So I'll get it physically together first, and then have a look at the BMS connections and the bus bars and everything, and see what I need to do to tweak them, because they were, for that part of the pack, in a different orientation in the Leaf battery box. But yeah, I think this could be quite cool to get it set up, and once it is set up, then I can actually start trying to figure out how to talk to the BMS, how to get information on the cells, how to make sure that it's doing all the bottom balancing or load balancing. So yeah, that should be pretty cool to actually get this all together, and then I can actually hook the BMS up to it, see if I can start talking to it, but that's probably all going to be for a future episode. But if we can even get the physical side done today, I think that'll be pretty cool. Anyway, let's get to it. So there are actually 2 slightly different battery modules in the Leaf. The core technology and everything inside them and the actual battery cells is identical. The difference is just what's attached to the housing. So we've got the ones here that make up the kind of core 12 pack at the back, and then the ones that are dotted elsewhere inside the box. So we're going to deal with these ones that make up the core first, and the main difference is basically they've just got mounting tabs for a couple of things on the front, and another little tab on the back just to hook them up to the mounting brackets that attach it to the base. So that's good. The great thing about these is it makes it very easy to find the right orientation. So I took plenty of pictures when I was taking apart the battery pack, and I had to also look over my old video, but yeah, I know now how these are configured, so we can lay them out properly. So basically they end up with kind of positive top right and positive top left and positive bottom right, with this little QR code up the top left. So we're going to get these all oriented in the right way, and then start adding the other components around them. Okay, so there we have it. Got our 12 base modules in place. Now I'm just going to put the kind of 2 black brackets either side, and what we'll do is we'll fit some of the silver brackets to hold the upper level, fit them in there as well. That will push the black brackets ever so slightly further out on the mounting point in the battery box, but the holes that actually bolt in there are oval anyway, so there's a bit of give in them, and we can push them out slightly further if we need to. Okay, now that's all mocked up, we're going to run the 4 bars through the base and just try and start to cinch them together. So with the extra few millimeters that we've got in the pack now because of these panels, the standard Nissan bars that went through the batteries originally don't have enough give in them. So I've got some 1 meter M8, I think, threaded rod that I'm just going to put through instead. It's a tighter fit anyway, so it should hopefully make for a more secure pack, even if it's going to be a bit more of a pain to slot in than these ones. So it seems like the rear lower hole on this is ever so slightly smaller than the others. So I've just tapped that out to M8 as well. So I should just be able to run the thread through it now. And I guess it makes it a little bit more secure. All right, so there we have it. First layer is more or less in place. I might tighten it up a tiny bit more once I've got the next layer in, but I don't want to do it too much because otherwise it'll make too tight a gap between that for me to be able to get the 12 next ones in. So let's get to it. So I can see why Nissan, or rather the battery manufacturer that Nissan uses a bar that's tapered and only threaded a small bit. So I don't know if you can see it here, but the threads only go that length and then the rest is smooth. It's also narrower, and that will obviously during a manufacturing process, when you're focused on volumes especially, make it easier. If you've got these in a jig that clamps them together, slide this through, bolt it on either end, and you're on to the next one. Whereas what I'm having to do is almost screw it the whole way through because it's just getting caught on the sleeves that go in between the plastic of the housing and the mount itself. They've got kind of sharpish edges, and it's just getting caught on those. So having to actually screw it through the whole way. Got 2 more to do, get them done, and then we'll tighten it all up properly. So there we go, that's the core of our battery pack. Kind of wish I could just stick it in the car now, but there's still quite a bit that has to go on. So each of these is still only a 7.5 volt module, or half module, then 15 volts together. So we still need to get all the bus bars connected up to bring everything together, to bring it up to 360 volts. And then we also need to make sure that our BMS is attached. As I said earlier, this bit should be relatively easy as long as I've clamped things down enough. What was on here before should just stick back on. This one's where I'm going to have to basically get the other parts and break them up and try and put them back together in a sensible manner. But we'll get the lower part on and see how we're doing. So here we've got the bulk of the connections for the batteries. Basically just, yeah, bolting them on. Okay, so here we go. This is the bus bar installation, who knows what you want to call it, for the lower range of the battery pack. So that's these ones here. This side's going into the BMS, so I know it needs to go over that side. And we've got essentially the connections between each kind of red to black, top and bottom, and then in and out of the two sections of the pack either side. So we're going to try and clip this on and see how it goes. Okay, so I must have cinched things down just right, because those are actually going on perfectly. The holes are lining up exactly as I want them, so that'll just be a bolt-in process. Not going to bolt it in just now, we'll just leave it there. Now I want to move on to the top. The challenge we've got here is, instead of one nice long piece, we've got two oddly shaped pieces, which, yeah, isn't ideal. But we can cut this apart, we can break it up, we can do things to the various bus bars. One or two of them look like they could do with a bit of cleaning. But overall it's not too difficult. The challenge is that this was for connecting batteries that were kind of side by side that way rather than this way. So we may end up foregoing the plastic bit altogether and just sticking the bus bars on to create the path. But yeah, let's see how we get on and we'll figure it out. Can't be too difficult, can it? All right, the more I look at this, the more I think it's going to take me a little while to figure it out. So I've got the stool around, so I've got somewhere comfy to sit, and I'm just going to turn on some tunes and work through it. So just to kind of give a bit more information here, the challenge isn't just about getting each connector connecting upright, because actually that's not difficult. You just want to go red, black, red, black, red, black, red, black all along, and then connect one end to the other side of this and the other end to the inverter. Where the challenge comes, and what I want to make sure I get right, is just getting these different BMS combos correctly wired up so that they're actually reading the right thing. For example, this BMS here, let's say it was to that one, actually wants to come from down here, not kind of this one here. So I've got to kind of trace things through, probably double check back to my old video just to see which ones of these were positive, which were negative, and make sure I've got them the right way around. And we'll probably end up with spare BMS wire, but I'll just kind of tape that out of the way or cable tie it. I just want to make sure that we're pulling the data from the right places. And then, something like this, nice long one, I probably won't use, but I can actually use it to maybe make a couple of short ones if I don't have enough. So yeah, what I'm thinking of doing is maybe just laying them out on top here before I lay it on the side. Okay, so we've cut up one of these other sections, tried to break out any of the connection bars so that I can actually get the orientation of each of the pieces more or less the same, so that they're all working with this kind of structure. And that's letting us see, you know, where we've got a complete section and where we've got gaps, or where we might need to flip things around, make them sit the other way to fill in the holes. All right, we've got two nice orange piles of metal and plastic, and yeah, now I just need to basically try a bunch of different things and see what looks like it might work, see where the gaps are, and start filling them in. So this is kind of where we hit a few traps. So this is a block for two cells together, but actually there's no interconnection between them because they must have linked into two different sections of the battery, even though the cells themselves are side by side. So I'll need to get these further disconnected, break that apart again, but it's also going to then need me to kind of double check where the kind of BMS locations are and make sure I'm not taking, you know, two readings for one cell or anything like that and then no readings for another. So yeah, all fun and games. So I had to go back and watch my old videos to figure this out. In hindsight, I really should have just mapped this out on paper, sketched out what the path was. But fortunately, I had plenty of video to go on, so I was able to work it back. It's not a simple linear progression along the whole thing. There is a kind of very specific path that the bus bars and everything take to get everything in and back out, I guess. And I want to try and match that as much as possible, mainly to ensure that I'm getting the right kind of BMS wire connecting to the right other terminal on the pack. All right, let me take you through what actually happens. Okay, so my assumption was things kicked off at this side, but they don't. They actually kick off over here. So these are the two flat horizontal modules that are in the middle on either side. So basically the very first connection in the whole thing is actually to the big 12 module piece, and that connects the positive out to the outside world via that kind of cut off junction box. Then you get all the way to the far side of it and you've got a wire coming out, and it connects to this kind of middle of the two lower pieces. So then you've got a battery module here, so power obviously goes that way. Then there's a bus bar here, it goes down, comes out. Then it kind of does a loop back to here, but to the top one. Goes to here through the battery, bus bar, battery, and then it does a flying leap all the way over to here. And then we've got a battery, bus bar, battery. Then we've got a bus bar over to here. Battery, bus bar, battery, bus bar, battery. Then this gets here. This one again takes a bit of a jump and goes to this one. That then comes back via the battery, bus bar, battery. And at this point, there's a bus bar going across and bridging to the same layout, the other side of the pack. So basically, I need to now chop and change between these two to try and get everything set up properly, which should be interesting. So what's the plan, you might ask? Well, if I can make it work, we've got a negative terminal here, so I want to see if I can just send a bus bar up to this one, or a cable, something to connect these two, and that way I've got my positive and my negative outputs for the whole pack both on the same side, and it'll make routing wires and everything that bit easier. Alright, there's a bit of trimming I'll need to do to make this work, but overall it's not illogical, and basically I just need to create some additional small bus bars to go between the different areas. So I'll just try and fit the other side as well, and then I'll have to go and just trim more plastic off, try and get everything to fit, and then I'll measure up for bus bars. Alright, it all fits. There's no... I guess I shouldn't have expected there would be, but... yeah, it doesn't want to fit at the moment. It just needs a little bit of attention. We'll get everything fitting nicely, and hooking up properly. I'll probably have to move some of the way the outputs from the BMS and that go, just so they're not touching each other, but that's not a huge problem. So yeah, I'm gonna get cutting away more plastic and try and get this fitted back up. Alright, that was a lot of kind of detail work, just trimming down the plastic coverings to make sure they fit in the space. Made 9 new bus bars, just kind of copied off one that bridged the gap between two modules, so we've got hopefully enough of those. And then I also created this bar to go between the upper and lower arms, or upper and lower modules. So we're good to kind of start putting things together. As you notice, there's wires everywhere, but I don't want to start pulling on wires if things aren't actually in place, because I'll end up losing something. So I want to wait until everything's bolted in, and then I'll get the wires nicely routed in place. So yeah, I think what we're going to do now is just start gradually putting the pack together in kind of sections, and get it ready to go. So we've got the top row of bus bars all in place, and all of the BMS circuit wires, like the little signal wires in the middle. So that's, each of these modules is now a full battery in and of itself. And now I'm going to attach every second bus bar along here and then fill in the gap. So we're just building out the voltage of the pack gradually. All right, that's our top row all set. Bus bars in place, everything is connected up, BMS in place. So now I'm going to just go through and try and do the same on the bottom. So there we have it. That should actually be the battery fully connected. There's a positive and negative terminal at the far end, and that should have the full pack voltage available at it. Kind of scared, but let's go check it out. Alright, here we go. Let's check it out. So this should be the positive terminal down here and the negative up here. And we're showing somewhere around 353 volts. So there we go, we have a complete battery pack. No way to actually mount it in the car just yet, but we've got a complete battery pack. It's really cool to actually see this in this form now, and be able to visualize it actually sitting there inside the car and, you know, providing the power that I'm going to use. I'm also really glad that I managed to kind of get everything to work out, especially with things like the BMS connections and that, because I don't want to have to go and sort out you know, an aftermarket BMS. I'd rather see if I can use the Leaf one, and we'll do a future video on that. But that was kind of contingent on the wiring being in the right place. So it looks like it's there. When I get a chance to actually hook up the control module at some point in the future, we'll actually test to see if that's right. But it's, you know, it looks like we're good, based on the research that I was able to do. And then also being able to just check the overall voltage of the pack, I'm pretty happy with it, because it's basically bang on the rated nominal voltage for this pack. Now obviously that's just kind of somewhere in the range that is okay for this pack. They've decided is the nominal voltage, but it's good. It's sitting on there. It's not showing as if it's got like a ridiculously low state of charge, based on just a very basic check of the actual voltage, which is great. And yeah, it's probably something I should have checked out when I first got the battery pack, but I was too excited to kind of tear it down and I forgot to do that. I checked a few of the cells and they were kind of within their normal range, so this is actually pretty much what I was expecting to see, and kind of indicates to me that the pack as a whole is in good health. And, you know, based on the few kind of spot checks I did on some of the other ones, I don't think there's going to be anything that's too far out of whack. So we're in a pretty good place. Kind of steps going forward with this, as I said, I want to do, I guess, some more on the signal side of things. So that's actually try and get the control module set up and see if I can read some of the data from the battery and get more detail on its health. And then the other side is to finish off building out the pack, get the mountings for that welded into the car, and then basically put this inside the box, and yeah, then hopefully get it in the car. So it'll be progressing in stages. Might take us a few weeks to get there, but I think we're getting much closer to actually being able to test drive the car with the full kind of pack voltage, rather than, and full kind of power capability as well, rather than using a small number of mobility batteries, which, you know, show huge voltage sag and that sort of thing when you try and drive on it, and I know that I can't really go very far. I'll definitely be able to go some distance on this to kind of test drive and start to figure out if the car is doing what it needs to do. So yeah, really exciting times. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and thanks for sticking with me for so long. I hope you kind of got some insight and information into how one way of creating one of these custom battery packs, and that you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it and you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing. Likes, comments, always really appreciated. But yeah, till next time, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.